everyone, this is CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom, and this video is going to be a video response to a paranormal tag that's going around. I'm actually not sure where it began, but I did see it in Raven Nightsong's channel and on MIRTHandREVERENCE's channel. So those are the two videos I saw, which inspired me to do the tag as well. So there's 5 questions in this tag. Again, it's the paranormal tag. So I'm just going to get into it. So the first question is, what is the scariest experience that you've had? And this is in regards to paranormal activity. And the scariest, I guess it's not really the scariest experience, because I don't really think I've had a scary experience. I would label this the creepiest experience that I had. And what happened was, it was, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, when my daughter was still attending public school. I homeschool her now. And at the time I was also working at the metaphysical shop that I work at now, but I worked at it more days, more consecutive days, more hours. And I was driving from the metaphysical shop, which is in the north end of the city, to my daughter's elementary school, which was in the west end of the city. And I was driving to go pick her up, and I was following this car down the street, and we came to a stop sign. And when we came to the stop sign, I noticed that there was a little boy looking at me from the back window. So he was standing or sitting on his knees facing me, and I was driving, so I could see him. He was looking at me out of the back window, and as I was watching him, because we were at the stop sign. Now, mind you, we were sitting at the stop sign not even 5 minutes. I mean, the amount of time it takes for that car to stop at the stop sign and me to roll up behind the car at the stop sign. They were taking a left. I was also taking a left. But the way that the road goes, it's like a left, and then there's maybe 2 car lengths, and then there was a right that I was taking while they were going continually down on the left. So it's like an intersection, but it's an odd intersection. So the car in front of me with the little boy in the back looking at me was taking a left, and I was going to, take a left and take an immediate right. He was, I'd say about 6 or 7, it looked like, and he was like screaming at me, or what looked like to be screaming at me from the back seat. And I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out by reading his lips what he's saying. And the reason why my feeling was that he was screaming is that, his expression was very like a stretched mouth, like he was talking but trying to be loud, and he was looking right at me. He was looking right at me, and I remember thinking, or maybe even saying aloud to nobody in my car, "I can't hear you. What are you trying to tell me?" So that car took the left, and it was my turn, and I sort of, paused and then went, because I wanted to find out what this boy was trying to tell me. And they continued down that, and I had to take my immediate right. I remember looking at thinking that I would follow them so I could try to understand what this boy is trying to tell me, but then looking at the time and realizing if I did follow them, then I'd be late for picking up my daughter from school, and I couldn't be late from picking her up from school. And as I took my immediate right, it dawned on me that that boy was not real. He was not a physical boy. He was ethereal. And as I came to that realization, I sort of got chills, and I wondered why he was talking to me, and what was it he had to say. I have a blog entry on my blog describing that whole experience in probably more detail, because when I blogged about it, it was more recently than now, but that feeling just sort of lingers with me. I'll put the link into the blog post about that experience in the information section of this video. So I don't think I've really had a scariest, but that was the creepiest experience I've had. So the next question was, ever experience anything other than a ghost? And I really want to make reference to Annie's video when she talked about shifting of time and space, because this was an experience that I can definitely say was a shifting of time and space. Again, it was a few years ago, and I had done a tarot party for a large group of individuals out in Freetown, I believe is where it was, which is quite a distance away from where I live, and it's sort of out in the country as opposed to I live in this city. And to get there, I had to travel along the edge of the Bridgewater Triangle. And if you're not familiar with what the Bridgewater Triangle is, I can put a link to an article about that in the information section of this video. And I was on the outskirts of it when I got there to do this tarot party, unbeknownst to me at the time. And I didn't find out exactly where I was until I ended up talking to someone at that metaphysical shop that I work at, who pointed out that the house I was in was on the border, or if not in part of the Bridgewater Triangle. So I was there for the tarot party. It started around 7 and it didn't end until after midnight. And I was driving home alone along this road. It was sort of like a country road out near there was farms in the area, and I was driving along this road and it was really dark, and because it was a country road or a back road, there wasn't a lot of street lights. And I began getting a very strong sensation that the energy in my car had shifted. And whether that meant that there was a spiritual or a non-physical entity with me in the car, or whether something was occurring in the car or with the car and with myself, something was changing. And I remember looking out of the windshield and looking up at the sky. It was very clear and I could see a whole bunch of stars. And I slowed down because I was feeling very disorientated and very disconnected. And I remember thinking and saying aloud that if there was someone in the car with me, please leave. I do not wish to take you home. And I need to focus, I need to drive, because it was so dark and so late. And at that moment, I remember stopping the car because I had felt that I was no longer driving on the road. And I remember looking behind me into the back seat of the car and out the back window and out the front window, and not seeing the environment around me anymore. It was the environment, but it was different. And there was less lights, and I almost had the sensation that there was more stars, and I was so disorientated that I had to take a moment and then drive forward. It was so strange. It was so surreal. It almost felt like it was a dream, but I remember coming home and getting out of the car and walking into the house and, checking that I was actually physically here. And later on, I found out that driving back down that road days later, I took my husband to where I had driven for the tarot party, and when I drove home and tried to identify where it was that I stopped, near the farm, because that was the last thing I remember, Not too far from the farm was the old a family graveyard, and with further research I discovered a past life memory and of Abigail Fonts, and I will also put a link to a blog post I did about that as well. But that was where I stopped the car, and I felt like at that moment that I had stopped, it was because I had shifted into a past life memory or a time. There was sort of a time shift that occurred to me, and I had been on that road or in that area at a different time. So I'll put the link to that and you can read more about that. But that was when I experienced sort of this shifting in time, which was rather unsettling, I guess, at the time. So the next question is, how old were you when you experienced it for the first time, or when you experienced paranormal activity for the first time? And for me, this is so difficult to pinpoint. I'm not really sure because time is such a difficult thing for me to work with, meaning that I lose track of time rather quickly. I can't remember week from week, day to day, year from year. I forget how old I am. It's sort of like that. But I do remember having imaginary friends as a child, although they weren't imaginary to me. And I do remember being able to visit other planes of existence as a teenager, and would frequently pretend I was sick so I could stay home and visit other realms of existence and meet with my friends. And I would do this rather easily, listening to different types of music. Classical music was the easiest that really was able to shift me into that other reality, and I would do that quite frequently. So whether it was when I first became friends with my imaginary friends, or whether when it was more real for me when I was a teenager, I've had these sort of experiences for many years. Can you speak, see, hear them? I can. I definitely feel them. I can feel the shifting in the energy and the vibrational frequencies. I definitely hear them, and I frequently see them. I speak to them. However, I think the majority of my experiences, I will see them and not speak with them, or I will hear them and speak with them. But generally, I think it's more of a sensing and then a translating in what I interpret that energy as. So, yeah, I guess you can. I've had many experiences in this house right now that we are living in, and a lot of the experiences in this house are seeing. And actually, I'm going to refer you again to my blog, because I blog about this more than I talk and make videos about that. If you go to my blog and you look on the side where it talks about, the categories, if you click on spirit or spirits, you will see some of the experiences that I've had in this house. And the last question was, does it run in your family? Honestly, I think this is from my mom and my mom's side of the family, although my mom will deny it. She does talk about a time when her mother died, which was my grandmother, or my meme, and she was looking in the mirror in the bathroom a day or two after my meme had died, and she had basically scryed, and she had seen her mother standing behind her with her hand on her shoulder, letting her know that she was okay and she had transitioned. My mom won't talk about that very frequently. She's had an out-of-body experience when she was a child as well, and she is able to, she has a lot of precognitive dreams. But she doesn't call it paranormal stuff. And she is a very devout Catholic, so it sort of conflicts with her beliefs, which is why she doesn't like to discuss it. But I believe that's where these abilities sort of come from, although I do feel like we all have these abilities, but it's stronger on my mother's side. And that was the questions. So I'll put the questions in the information section as well. And I look forward to seeing everybody else's video responses to this. And remember, I love you.